It began like a whisper, a distant swirl over the western Pacific. But by November 9th, 2025, that whisper had become a roar. Super Typhoon Fung-wong, known in the Philippines as Uwan, was now a full-blown monster charging toward Luzon, with winds near 115 miles per hour and gusts reaching 140 mph. The storm stretched almost 1,000 miles across, swallowing the horizon and turning daylight into dusk. Across the islands, sirens wailed. Families packed what they could and fled inland. Airports were shut down, flights canceled, and entire coastlines evacuated as the nation braced for impact. The government issued its highest-level alert signal number 5 warning of storm surges taller than houses and rainfall measured in feet, not inches. By nightfall, the first outer bands of rain lashed the shores. The Pacific had awakened, and the Philippines stood directly in its path. At 9:10 p.m., the eye of Super Typhoon Fung-wong made landfall in Aurora province, unleashing its fury across the eastern coastline of Luzon. The storm's howling winds tore through towns like freight trains. Roofs ripped off trees, snapped in half, and power lines sparked against the dark sky. Within minutes, entire villages were plunged into darkness. In Catanduanes and Camarines, sewer houses made of wood and tin crumpled under the pressure of winds topping 140 miles per hour. Residents described hearing walls buckle as if the earth itself were roaring. Massive waves, some over 10 feet high, surged inland, smashing seawalls and carrying fishing boats into city streets. Airports were closed. More than 900,000 people were already evacuated, but thousands more were trapped by the rising floodwaters. The Coast Guard suspended all sea travel as waves battered the shoreline. Emergency hotlines were overwhelmed. In the chaos, parents held their children close as water filled their homes. A mother in Baylor shouted over the wind, "We thought we were safe, but the storm came faster than we ever imagined." By midnight, Fung-wong had engulfed half the island. The night had become a battle between nature's rage and human will. As Super Typhoon Fung-wong raged across Luzon, survival became the only goal. In towns like Dite and Legazpi, people clung to rooftops as the water climbed higher each hour. Rivers burst their banks, swallowing homes and cars. Whole neighborhoods disappeared beneath 6 feet of floodwater. Rescue teams, firefighters. Police and volunteers braved the violent winds to reach those trapped inside. Roads were littered with fallen power poles and uprooted trees, forcing responders to wade through waist-deep water, carrying ropes, flashlights, and first aid kits. Inside evacuation centers, thousands huddled together in the dark. The power grid had collapsed, and the only light came from flickering candles and phone screens. Children cried, while parents whispered prayers, hoping the roof above them would hold. In Aurora, the storm's first point of impact, emergency crews reported entire coastal communities flattened. Boats lay overturned on highways. Concrete walls crumbled like paper. The sound outside was relentless wind rain and breaking glass. One rescue worker described it as the loudest silence you'll ever hear the moment after the storm's roar, when you realize everything familiar is gone. By dawn, Fung-wong had left Luzon, bruised, broken, and gasping for air. But the fight for survival was far from over.
Hoy! What the fuck, man?
When daylight returned, the true cost of Super Typhoon Fung-wong began to emerge. Streets that were once full of life now looked like rivers of mud and shattered wood. Families searched through the wreckage for loved ones, for photographs, for anything that survived. In Catanduanes, officials confirmed the first fatalities, a father and his son swept away as they tried to cross a flooded bridge. In Quezon Province, rescuers recovered bodies trapped under collapsed houses, while hundreds more remained missing. Across Luzon, more than 2 million households lost power, and communication networks went silent. Hospitals overflowed with the injured victims of flying debris, flash floods, and landslides. Medical staff worked by flashlight after backup generators failed, while volunteers lined up to donate food and blood. "We've seen typhoons," before one nurse said, "but never anything that came this fast or this strong." Tens of thousands were stranded in makeshift evacuation centers. Food and clean water were running low. Mothers cradled infants in damp blankets, whispering lullabies over the roar of rain. As the hours passed, the storm's devastation grew into something more than physical. It was emotional. Entire communities, once vibrant and loud, fell silent under the weight of loss.
This might be a big one. Yeah, here it is. That's a big one.
Yan na sa dagat! Dali na sa motor! Yan na sa dagat!
Meteorologists had seen the signs days before. Over the western Pacific Sea, surface temperatures hovered near 88 degrees Celsius, abnormally warm for November. This heat acted like rocket fuel, feeding Super Typhoon Fung-wong as it grew larger and stronger with terrifying speed. Within just 36 hours, the system intensified from a tropical storm into a Category 5 super typhoon, its wind field expanding nearly 1,000 miles across. Satellite imagery showed a near-perfect eye, surrounded by dense thunderclouds spiraling toward the center, the hallmark of an unstoppable giant. Experts from Pagasa and the U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center confirmed that rapid intensification was driven by record-breaking ocean warmth and low vertical wind shear, allowing the storm's core to tighten and accelerate. The warmer the water, the more energy the typhoon absorbed, a direct consequence of rising global temperatures. Climate scientists warn that such extreme storms are becoming more frequent and more destructive. Fung-wong is a glimpse of the future. One researcher stated a storm supercharged by a warming ocean. By the time it struck Luzon, Fung-wong carried rainfall totals exceeding 12 inches 300 millimeters in less than 24 hours. It wasn't just a typhoon, it was a symptom of a changing planet, where the line between natural disaster and climate crisis grows thinner each year.
Oh my God!
In the aftermath of Super Typhoon Fung-wong, the Philippines mobilized one of its largest emergency responses in years. Over 40,000 troops, police officers, and volunteers fanned out across Luzon to rescue those trapped in flooded towns and deliver supplies to the stranded. Helicopters airdropped food and medicine into isolated mountain villages where roads had been buried under landslides. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council (NDRRMC) coordinated non-stop with regional governments, turning schools and sports arenas into emergency shelters for more than 1.2 million evacuees. Relief convoys from neighboring provinces carried water rice and medical kits through roads still slick with debris. In Manila, soldiers used amphibious vehicles to navigate waist-deep floods, pulling families from submerged homes. International organizations, including USAID, the Red Cross, and UNICEF, pledged logistical and financial support, emphasizing the urgent need for clean water sanitation and health care. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. urged patience and solidarity in a televised address promising fast-tracked recovery aid. The Filipino spirit has faced storms before, he said, but we will always rise again. As engineers began restoring power and clearing roads, rescue teams knew the hardest phase was yet to come, the long, exhausting process of rebuilding a nation battered by the sea.
Wow! Oh my God!
As the floodwaters began to recede, the Philippines was left to confront the painful truth. Super Typhoon Fung-wong was not just another storm. It was a warning about how fragile life has become on the front lines of a changing climate. In the provinces of Aurora, Catanduanes, and Camarines Sur, survivors spoke of how they had followed evacuation orders early this time, because they remembered those who hadn't made it in past disasters. "We didn't wait to see if it would be bad," said one resident. "We just ran." That decision saved countless lives. Scientists pointed out that rapid intensification, once a rare phenomenon, has now become disturbingly common. The storm's explosive growth over record-warm Pacific waters reflected a climate system growing increasingly volatile. For a nation hit by more than 20 typhoons each year, preparedness is no longer enough. Adaptation must become a way of life. From stronger infrastructure to early warning networks and reforestation in flood-prone zones, the lessons of fung-wong demand urgent action. And yet amid the wreckage, there was something unbreakable, a collective resolve. Filipinos have faced the ocean's fury for generations. Each time they rebuild. Each time, they rise higher than before.
This might be a big one. Yeah, here it is. That's a big one.
Yan na sa dagat. Dali na sa motor. Yan na sa dagat.
As dawn broke over the shattered coasts of Luzon, a calm silence settled where chaos once reigned. The winds had passed, but the echoes of Super Typhoon Fung-wong lingered in the faces of survivors, in the ruins of homes, in the resilience of a people who refused to yield. From the flooded streets of Catanduanes to the darkened skyline of Manila, stories of courage and compassion emerged, neighbors pulling each other from floodwaters, soldiers sharing their rations with families, children offering smiles in evacuation centers. This was not just the story of destruction. It was the story of endurance, of humanity standing tall against nature's fury. But as the planet warms and the seas rise, these storms grow stronger, faster, and deadlier. What happened in the Philippines could happen anywhere. Let fung-wong be a reminder of the power of nature and the duty we share to protect our planet and each other. If this story moved you, like, share, and subscribe, because awareness is the first step toward resilience, and resilience begins with all of us.